Welcome to Bear and Balanced. I'm Jeff Burkus. Other side of the screen, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, the Chicago Bears finished the season as the number 2 seed, which is what we were hoping for going into the weekend. The game itself was maybe not the most fun that we've ever had. It looked like the Bears were maybe a little bit asleep. But how did you take the finale?
Such a weird end of the season for the Bears. I mean, yeah, look, we all wanted the Bears to win that game, obviously. In the grand scheme of things, they're in the playoffs, which is all that mattered. They backed into the 2 seed. They also technically backed into the NFC champion or NFC North title because they didn't get a chance to play the game, right? You hear them talk about the hat and t-shirt game. The Bears didn't get that. So we, as fans, we didn't get to see our team go out there and celebrate, a win and put the new hat on and the t-shirt on. So we missed that too. So something to look forward to next year, right? So with getting that plus Caleb's 4,000, we'll look forward to that next year too. But like you said, man, 2 seed, I can't complain about this season.
It was so funny, and we're gonna do a little bit of a different show today, just so you guys know. But we're gonna basically recap the regular season, and then we're gonna turn the page and we're gonna focus on the postseason here. But we're gonna quickly talk about this Lions game. But before we get into that, one thing that I noticed was social media. A lot of Lions fans were chattering about this game, which I think is so. I was like, what are you doing? And I remember last year the Bears finished the year by beating the Packers, and Packers fans are kind of swatting it away. And I get it. Like, the game is pretty meaningless for you guys, and pretty meaningful to the Bears fan base. And this year I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, the Detroit Lions were like, Super Bowl contenders coming into this year in the window. They were talking all the trash, like Ben Johnson doesn't matter, like all of this stuff about the Lions were the team that was predicted to win the North. The Lions were the team that predicted to be the 2 seed and go deep in the playoffs. And so for them to like be kind of talking trash about the Bears after this game, I thought, what are you guys doing? Like, I don't understand what you're doing. It just seems so silly to me.
I'm not a big trash talker on that anyway. I mean, if someone jumps in my mentions, I will occasionally rebut what they have to say because 9 times out of 10 they're stupid, so it's pretty easy to do. But I just don't bother. I don't have any energy to trash talk fans. I just don't see the point of it. And then, as Bears fans, they haven't been good. So what the hell am I going to say anyway? These last few years, and now even though they are pretty good, still, I never had the energy to jump out there and start talking trash. And I'll read it. I enjoy those receipts. Those receipts are hilarious. There are some people out there that this could be like their full-time job is pulling receipts and just going at people. It's been fun to kind of see.
Well, let's get into this Lions recap. And I'm telling you, the YouTube, the interface that we have keeps hiding our Lions recap, and I can't figure out how to turn that off. So there we go. Maybe this will work now. So it's like timing us. It's like, guys, don't spend a lot of time on this Lions game. That's basically what's going on here. It's like, hey, like we don't want to spend a lot of time on this Lions game. Bears lost 19-16 on a last second field goal. They looked dead. Yeah. From the start of this game. And, one of the things that you figure out when you've watched a lot of football seasons is that early September football is weird. Like you get like teams are just kind of everywhere. They're figuring out who they are. They're trying to figure out who are we playing at gunner? What does this team look like? Our wide receiver 3 in week 1 is off the roster by week 8. Like, there's just a lot of stuff that goes on. In early September football is kind of weird. And you kind of have to, but everybody wants to overreact to it, right? The Bears were 0-2. Everybody wanted to overreact to that. I get it, but new regime, all that kind of stuff. You have to make sure that you don't overreact to September football. Another thing you don't want to really overreact to is week 18 football because it's weird. And yes, the Bears said they're going to win this game. They're coming out to try to win the game. The Bears came out and played their starters. Yes, they came out, but did they really, come out with the same level of emotion in this game that they will, this Saturday? Did they come out with the same level of emotion that they did against San Francisco the week before? There's enough in the back of your mind that says, we've got a playoff game next week. against the Packers. That's really, really important. Yeah, we want to win this game, but there's still a little bit of that mentality that felt like it was missing, and they didn't really wake up until after halftime.
I'm glad you mentioned the emotion of the game because that was my same thought. There were two teams playing, and one team seemed like they really, really wanted to win. Like everything was a little extra with the Lions, right? They wanted that game really bad. It meant nothing to them, right? That's a very well coached team. I mean, Dane Campbell, he may be a meatball and a meathead and all that stuff, but he's a football guy, and I like Dan Campbell a lot. He had his team ready to play, and they wanted that game more than the Bears did. I'm not saying everyone in the Bears kind of dialed it in or dialed it back, but you can see some guys making business decisions. Ben Johnson mentioned that he kind of scaled the game plan back a little bit. He kind of wanted to simplify it, and he clarified what he meant by that today in his press conference. I kind of took it as they wanted to kind of make things a little easier as far as what they had to think about. They wanted to just go out there, react, play a crisp football game, and he thought that would be enough for them to get the win. They were not very crisp. A lot of mental errors, a lot of mistakes, and you don't want to see that going into the playoffs. But like you said, part of that could have been human nature, just kind of like, well, we don't really need this game. But I'll tell you what, those Lions, they wanted that game bad.
Yeah, so I think the Bears got caught looking ahead.
Yeah.
I think that's a good learning opportunity for a young roster, a roster that hasn't been in this situation obviously before. And you trying to keep focus for 18 weeks is hard. And there's things called trap games for a reason, and there's all these things. And even if you're trying to keep that motivation up, it wasn't there. And at the end of the day, it didn't matter. The Eagles lost their game. And so the other way to clinch the number 2 seed happened. And so the funny thing is, the butterfly effect of the NFL, there's all these things that you could look back and, well, if the Bears just would have held on here, if they would have won this game or maybe, lost that game, whatever, things change. But Josh Allen just hits that 2-point conversion against the Eagles the week before. They're playing this week completely different because they're locked into the 2 seed. The Eagles are locked into the 3 seed, and you say, okay, well, we're going to rest our starters, right? Yeah. Then it's a different conversation. We have a very different week on social media. We have a very different week in the interviews. Like all that stuff's very different because Josh Allen just has to hit that wide open receiver in the 2-point conversion. Perennial MVP misses the pass, and now here we are, and we have to play the starters. But was there a learning opportunity there? Was there a lesson that could be pulled from that? Like, guys, you took your eye off the ball and look what happened. You lost to a team that didn't have anything to play for. I think that's meaningful. So I think that's something, even if it's one of those lessons, it didn't cost them anything. Yeah. Right. It turned out to be a free lesson. But I think it's one of those that, maybe this plays well down the road. That maybe they learned something out of this. I don't know.
Ben Johnson seemed pretty pissed at his team's effort. Caleb seemed pretty pissed. A few other veterans that spoke in the locker room seemed a little pissed. So, yeah, I think this team is going to be mad. They're going to be angry. They're going to be passionate going forward. And like you said, it was a unexpected learning experience for this franchise. And there's been a lot this season. This season has been a lot of adversity. A lot of things have kind of popped up as the season went on where you're like, a good team will learn from that. Let's see if it happens. Oh, they've learned from that. They've evolved as a team. They've evolved as a locker room. Whereas past teams, we couldn't really say that. So I think they'll take this and they'll file it back there and be like, yeah, we have to make sure we're on it 100% at all times. Otherwise something like this will happen. And that first 3 quarters were just bad. I got a text from yesterday during the game, said, hey, if it goes like this, let's not even talk about this BS of a game here. Let's just go right on to a season recap with the end of the season. And I'm like, yeah, it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing. So real quick on the playoffs here. Again, the Bears are the 2 seed. They'll host the Packers. They'll host on Saturday night. That game is on Amazon Prime, I believe. So
Al Michaels
streaming service, you have monotone Al Michaels, who hasn't been impressed with anything in the last 5 years. Hopefully that's Al Michaels' last game that he calls. I don't know if Amazon has another game in the divisional round or not, but hopefully Al walks away after this, or Amazon finally figures out that maybe Al doesn't have it anymore. So if he can go out on Bears Packers and the playoffs, that would be great. If the Bears are able to win because they have the number 2 seed, they will host a second round playoff game, which is why the 2 seed's important. The game that you want to watch for who their opponent will be the Eagles game. because if the Eagles win, then they would host the Eagles because they're the
Yeah.
3 seed. The Eagles lose, that means that the Niners won, they'll go to Seattle, and then the Bears would play the Rams. The Rams are going to beat the
Oh,
Panthers. I
yeah.
mean, it would be an all-time upset if the Panthers, win that one. So, in my opinion, I think you want the Eagles to win. You know that you've come out with a really effective game plan against them. The Rams the Rams worry me a little bit, and I also think the Rams can take out the Seahawks, which would be nice for then they would have to come to Chicago for
Yeah.
a potential NFC championship game. So that is kind of the path for the Bears to the Super Bowl, to go through Chicago, that I think would be really advantageous. Of course, just keep winning games, and who cares, and whatever happens. There's other scenarios where they would go and play in Seattle. There's whatever, but if the Bears are able to hold serve, make sure you're watching that Eagles game to see who they will end up playing, and that, because that will determine the game. But otherwise, the seeds are set. Obviously, the season's over. The seeds are set in both conferences. The quarterback class of last year definitely is impacting the league already. You've
Yeah.
got Caleb with the Bears in the 2 seed. You've got Drake May with the Patriots in the 2 seed in the AFC. Bo Nix is in the 1 seed. I mean, it's a very new NFL. There's no Mahomes. There's no Burrow. Not saying those teams won't come back, obviously, but no one's really talking about the defending champs. The Eagles are the 3 seed. There's not a lot of buzz about them. It's a very different look to the NFL this year, and a lot of people are like, oh, the it just seems weird this year. It's like, maybe, but
It's
I think in
fun.
5 years you might look back at this and be like, oh, that's when it turned.
Yeah.
That's when these guys with their new team started taking over, and these teams are going to be good for a while.
No, it's a fun postseason. You look at all the teams. I was talking to I had a doctor appointment earlier today, and I was talking to my ortho. He's a big Patriots guy, right? So he's always wanting to talk football with me whenever I visit him. And he asked me who I thought was in a win, and it's hard to say this year. I mean, like, there is no Mahomes, like you said. There is no team that's kind of been a juggernaut. I think you may see the Patriots come out of the AFC. I think we talk about the Bears. Obviously, this is a Bears show. They got a chance. Like in the NFC, there is no clear-cut dominant team. The Rams, like I said, worry me because that's a pretty well-coached team. They've been there, done that a little bit. The Eagles, of course, have been there, done that. They're the defending champs. But, I mean, Seattle's kind of a new team up there. There's the Panthers, like I said. I mean, look, if the Panthers pull that upset, that'll be hilarious, right? That'll just be awesome for those guys. I think it'd be great. But, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fun playoff. And like I said, in a few years, we're going to look back at this and say, oh, yeah, this is when all these young guys really started clicking.
Yep. It's good stuff. We're going to have a lot of fun. We'll be back, talking about the playoff game next week. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get 2 of these, maybe 3 of these, maybe 4 of these, right? Let's just keep doing this. It'll be great. We've been waiting a long time to cover a playoff game, and this will be the first for our show. So that's pretty exciting stuff. So what we're going to do with the rest of the show is we're going to go through the categories, but we're going to go through the categories for the 2025 regular season. So this is our 2025 regular season recap. We're going to put it in the books, and we're going to move on to the playoffs. That's how we're going to play it. We're not going to do like a end of year, like look back on everything. This is our 2025 regular season recap. So as we do, we're starting off in the trenches, trench tribute. Where do you want to go for your 2025 regular season trench tribute?
I wrote down 2 names just to make sure I had a backup in case, but I think there's one clear-cut guy here that deserves it. That's Joe Thuney. I mean, come on, man. This guy, Pro Bowl, all pro level, played every snap of the season. He has just been everything as advertised when the Bears made that trade to bring him over. Just the leadership, the stellar play. He's been good in the run game, good in the pass game. He's 32 years old, I believe. He's not slowing down. I mean, he's got, a few more years in him that at a high level. And looking at what the Bears needed, he fit the bill. They needed a guy that came in, a tone setter, a locker room leader. He's a guy that kind of comes in and look, all the young guys around that team, they look to him because, I mean, he has the rings to show for it, right? He has the rings. He has the all-pro credentials. He is a guy that, I mean, he's a Hall of Famer probably at some point in his career. So he's a guy that all these guys look at and they, yeah, I want to be like him. I want to conduct myself like him. And he's kind of quiet. He didn't really say a lot this season, but the few times he did speak in press conferences and stuff and the stuff in the locker room, you can kind of feel the leadership out of him.
I mean, maybe the best move of Ryan Pohl's tenure, like in terms
Yeah.
of, just everything that you can think of that he's done to bring in a guy at that level for a steal. We've talked about it, the fourth round pick for a guy at that point in his career that you took advantage of the Chiefs needing to shed some salary. They were able to do that. They were able to convince him of what they were building and sign an extension. So he's, here. Hopefully he retires a Bear. I think that that's a real possibility given the contract and where he's at in his career. And I think it's absolutely the right answer. I think there are maybe a couple right answers. And they're all on the offensive line.
Yeah.
So if we don't say the guy that you think deserves the trench tribute, I get it. I think that it's very difficult. I watched a short video clip today on Twitter with Brandon Thorne and Duke Manyweather, and that's where I'm going to go is Jonah Jackson, the other
that was my other guy.
Okay,
so I'm glad you saw the same clip I did. Well, man, we're always
I'm listening to these guys, and they were on the same page that their first team All-Pro right guard this year was Jonah Jackson. And they talked about how he's returned to the best that he's looked. He's healthy, which is a big difference from last year. The Bears didn't try to jerk him around like the Rams did, where they were playing him out of position. And, Jonah Jackson, same story. It's a trade. Depressed value from the Rams because of what happened to him last year. He was the top interior offensive lineman on the free agent market last year when the Rams signed him.
Yes.
And so he became available because it didn't really work in LA. And I will say that while people were like really excited about Joe Thuney, you heard a couple, he's pretty old, like he makes a lot of money, that, guys break down. You heard a little bit of that. But overall, people were pretty excited about the Joe Thuney move. People were not excited about the Jonah Jackson move. And he didn't have a great first week. And people were like, this is just, disaster. And we were like, hold on, let's see this play out. And here it is, two of the preeminent offensive line experts in the world that watch all they do is watch offensive line tape. They grind this stuff. They know what they're talking about. They both agreed that Jonah Jackson was their first team All-Pro. And that's what we've been talking about all year, that he's been playing. So he's a menace in the run game. Yeah. He's just beating people up in the run game, but his pass pro has been pretty good. And so for him to be able to be, good, to borderline great at pass pro is amazing. And then add, his superpower, which is in the run game and how that's fueled this running attack. I think you got to love the interior offensive line for sure, but both of these guards absolutely deserve a share of the trench tribute this year.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Jackson. Like Ben Johnson knew who he was if he was healthy, and that's really the only question was if they made a trade for him. If the medicals checked out, Ben Johnson, I'm sure, was confident he would bounce back to he was a Pro Bowler in Detroit. He was a big part of their success in the run game, a big part of their success of that offense. So Ben Johnson knew, and Ryan Poles went out and made the deal. Again, we're talking about a minimal trade, just was a fourth or fifth. I know they got each one for 4, 1 for 5, but it's nothing. That's nothing in the grand scheme of things. A guy that kind of comes in and much younger. He'll be here for a while. And then, the guy in the middle, Drew Dahlman kind of ties it all together because now you have that center that's going to be here for a few years. Joe Thuney's going to be here for at least another year, maybe more. Jonah Jackson's here for a few years, but now you got something in that offensive line, and it's a beautiful thing.
I wrote down Drew Dahlman. I think we have to at least talk about the fact that he's, in the middle there. Like you said, he's like the dude's rug. He ties the room together. Yeah. And I think that's the Bears have needed to invest in the pivot, and they just have not invested in the center position since Olin Kreutz left. Right. And, when we were talking to Jay Hilgenberg, when Bill Zimmerman and I were talking to Jay Hilgenberg, we were talking about I laid it out for him. I say, hey, you're part of this great lineage of Chicago Bears centers. You've got George Trafton and like the early pioneer days, where the Bears were really good, winning championships. You've got, Bulldog Turner, in the 40s run where they were winning championships. Those guys both in the Hall of Fame. You got Mike Pyle in the 60s, was like, played for a really long time, good solid center. Obviously Jay Hilgenberg, borderline Hall of Fame player. We believe he should be in. Needs to get a little bit more push from the senior committee at some point here. Bears win a championship there. And then you got Olin Kreutz, and the Bears won a lot of divisions. They got to a Super Bowl. Like when the Bears have had that guy at center, they have been really successful. And we have been pushing this. It's as long as I've had a microphone and anybody has been tuning in. I've been talking about the Bears trying to get a center because I do think it's really important. And I think this is just I think they finally said, okay, enough is enough. Let's go out and get the top guy. We're not going to try to patchwork this together anymore with your Lucas Patricks and your Ryan Bates and your Sam Mustafers and fill in the blank of the Coleman Sheltons, the guys that you're going to try to get to play for a year and try to get them for cheap. We're going to get a guy that can play, and Dahlman has been great, and so they all deserve individually their flowers, and then together as an interior offensive line, this is what's going to drive their success in the playoffs, because it's going to be cold. They got to run the football. They've got to protect Caleb. This is the unit. The offensive line is a unit, but like inside of that, the interior offensive line, this is what's going to determine the success of this team.
And it's what we've wanted forever. Since we started this show, we've just wanted a competent offensive line. Just give us something fun to watch and to protect the quarterback and to move people. And the Bears finally got that. And like I said, I couldn't be happier with the O-line.
And we didn't even mention Darnell Wright, who's playing at a great level. But
or Ozzie, who came on and was
Ozzie came on, but look, the story is this interior offensive line, which was an emphasis. Completely rebuilt in the offseason, and it totally worked. Very seldom do you see a front office identify an issue, go out and attack it, and just hit 3 home runs.
Yeah,
which is what happened here.
Yeah.
To be clear, this is back to back home runs on this interior offensive line here. It's incredible.
I love it.
All right, let's get into the social media portion. Sweet tweets. You have picked an unfortunate mouthpiece, but we'll go with it. What do you got?
It's Larry Mayer. Of course, we all know Larry Mayer. He covers the Bears, So he had his tweet. I saw him like, wow, that's interesting. The Bears are the first NFL team to finish the season with the most takeaways, 33, and the fewest giveaways, 11, since the 2011 49ers. And the last time the Bears did it was 1963 when they won the NFL championship. So this means on this, but no, look, these are two critical things. And this comes down to coaching, right? This is, you hear, oh, you can't predict takeaways. You can't predict kind of stuff. Yes, you can. If you're coached a certain way, if you're Lovie Smith's teams did it, that's something that they were preached. Flus tried to do it, but I never really got that vibe, right? Like it's something that Flus that was part of his hits philosophy. I think when he changed the T to something that was stupid, I think he lost all credibility to me. So, but anyway, this team preaches it, right? And then offensive side of the ball, Caleb did learn that from the Flus era. That's something he carried over. We talked about it last week. He's smart with the football. I think that's always been in him, but maybe hearing such a chicken shit coach like Flus preach it to him for a whole season, maybe you kind of really emphasized it. But now here's Ben Johnson, same thing. Hey, let's be smart with the football. And the one thing we've seen Caleb do this year that he didn't do last year is he's throwing the ball away way more than last year. Last year he was smart with the football, but he took a lot of sacks, right? Some of those sacks he took last year, I had a lot pinned on him, but there were others where he just kind of took because, well, that was the smart play because he had nowhere to go with the ball. This year he's throwing out of bounds. This year, he's dirting it. This year, he's taking a flag sometimes when there's nothing there. He's like, what the hell? I'm not taking a hit. I'm going to lose yards anyway. I'm just going to take the penalties. Sometimes that's okay to do. I don't mind that all the time. And then you look at the ball control from the running backs, right? Eric Bieniemy, I'm not sure how his backs have done in the past. Obviously, he's a well-respected assistant coach. He's been around for a long time. He's been a play caller for a number of years. Whatever he's teaching these guys, they're very smart with the football. Swift, Monangai, and then it goes even to the receivers. I mean, they've all been smart with the ball. We're not seeing a lot of these guys getting the ball chopped away from behind. You know, they're pretty cognizant of what's going on when they're in traffic. They're protecting the ball, the 5 points of contact. I just think this is winning football, right? This is one of the things you need to have winning football, and I think it's just really really good to see.
Yeah, a lot of things there, a lot of good stuff. Obviously, I've been tracking this in the step differential. This
Yes.
is really big. What's amazing? There's a ton of press about most takeaways, which is makes sense, right? Like
Yeah.
they lead the league in takeaways. They also lead the league in least giveaways. Like, I mean,
I had no idea until I
it.
saw this. Yeah.
Well, I've been covering it all year. What do you
Well, I
mean you
mean,
didn't know it?
I
I've been
see
talking
that
about it all year.
I see the step differential. I didn't realize they were leading the league in fewest. I
Yeah,
see the number there.
I even write it out in the column that they're
Yeah.
leading the league. Anyway, that's okay. That's okay. Well, I'll forgive you for this one. It's a long year, and you
It's a
write
long year. Yeah.
9,000 articles a year. So, um, so you mentioned throwaways. Caleb had 37 credited throwaways on Pro Football Reference. That was second in the league. He does it a lot as one of those things that he has done well in his career. I heard someone, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Nate Tice or someone like that. But it's like some guys come in the league and they try to figure out what they can get away with by forcing the ball in, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I can't throw that ball.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I can't get away with that." And they learn through like interceptions and like, "Okay, I can't fit that ball in there." And then some guys are the opposite, where they're like, "I don't think I can get away with that." And then they kind of work their way up to, okay, now I think I can maybe throw into that tighter window. Can I do it? Okay, yeah, I did it. Okay, now I can throw into that even tighter window. Can I do it? Yeah, I did it. Okay. And it seems like Caleb is maybe the latter, where he's like, I'm not going to give the ball away, but I'm going to try to, take the open guy. I'm going to throw it. I'm going to protect the ball first. And then I'm going to figure out through the trial and error what I can get away with, bringing it up from like the easy to the harder, right? If that makes sense. And I thought that made a lot of sense. And the other thing that what you've mentioned brought to mind was I was watching a clip with I think his name's Steven Chia or something like that. Like I think he's a Barstool guy. And he was talking about like he doesn't believe in Caleb yet. Not that he won't, but he doesn't believe in him yet. And he's like, because he needs to show me that he can stand in there and take a hit and deliver the ball. And I was like, okay, well, that's a little bit of an old school thing, but like whatever. And then I kept thinking about it. I'm like, but what if the answer is he doesn't have to do that?
Yeah.
What if the answer is that he has this ability to get out of that, move the pocket, and not take the hits? He has made 34 straight starts. He's made every start in both of his first two seasons. And I would say that reducing the number of hits that you take is a good thing for a quarterback. And Caleb's built pretty solidly. So, he's not going to have some of the nicks and injury issues that maybe some guys that look like Gumby might, but he's still a human person, right?
Yeah.
That has to take care of his body. And so if he reduces the number of hits that he takes, that's a good thing. So I'm not sure that I necessarily agree with that take just on its face. I think that there's like, if he has this great ability to do something different, then isn't that pretty good in itself, right? So I think that all goes into the number that you're sharing too, because Caleb's ability to reduce these negative plays, it's also like strip sacks, right? Those are giveaways. Like there's a lot of things that he has done to put this team in a position to succeed, because he has these natural gifts, or these gifts that he's really worked on to accentuate his athletic ability, that I'm just not sure that we certainly haven't seen it in Chicago before, but it's a trait that I think that he really is leading the way with. And who he emulates his game after, the Rodgers stuff and all that stuff. It's really impressive. It's really impressive, and I think it's shown out in the numbers. Like these numbers are really impressive all over the place. But the Bears are not. It's not a mistake that the Bears are here.
Yeah.
Because these numbers do translate to wins that translate to playoff berths. So none of this should be super surprising if you've been following this all year. All right. Mine. This is from NFL Researcher at NFL_researcher. Most pass yards lost due to drops during the 2025 season. And I will preface this by saying, depending on where you look, drops are different. The
Yeah.
number of drops are different depending on PFF, next gen stats, pro football reference. Like they just calculate them differently. So it's hard to really nail this down. But I thought that this was interesting. Most pass yards lost, next gen stats. Caleb Williams, number one, 404 yards lost. Obviously, that would put him well over the 4,000 yard mark, right? Matthew Stafford was second with 363 yards lost. Trevor Lawrence 320, and it just drops from there. But the average is probably somewhere more around 120, 150 yards lost, right? So if the Bears are able to like get back to just like an average type of season in terms of yards lost due to drops, those numbers are going up. The completion percentages are going up. The yardage is going up. But I think that this has been, for as good as this offense has shown throughout the year and grown throughout the year, that there is a lot more. The ceiling isn't even close to being reached here. Like there's so much further to go for this offense, and this I think is a really good stat to show. There's just a ton more yardage, a ton more points out there.
Yeah, the drops are happening. They're happening at really inopportune moments too, right? There's been a couple plays where you're like, oh man, if he catches that, he's running forever, right? And this stat does not take those potential yak yards into account. This is point of drop is all that is. So yeah, there's a lot of times where you look at this and you're like, yeah, it could be. Like I said, every quarterback deals with this. But yeah, the Bears have been hit pretty hard all year. It's something that, that's obviously besides the yards lost, that also hurts the completion percentage, right? Some of these things here that, these gimmies that are not there. I know one game, Kyle Monunga had 2 screens he dropped, right? Who knows how long those are going to go for? These are short, easy passes that some of these guys are just missing there. Others are contested, right? So you're not sure exactly what next gen stats is looking at, but there's also plenty of times where we're, as fans, we're watching, yeah, he's got to come down with that. Roma Dunze earlier in the season had a couple like that where you're like, yeah, were those considered drops per next gen or per PFF? It's hard to say, but I'm sure the players consider that a drop. So they got to get better. Part of it is focus. Part of it is just, not thinking, right? A lot of it is these guys are out there. They're into offense. They're learning what they're doing. They're thinking of their route. They're thinking of their landmarks. They're not just playing football. You get these guys to, in year 2, they're just playing football. I think some of these drops, some of these penalties, some of the stuff cleans up and the offense goes to another level.
There's just, I think there's multiple tiers left is what I'm saying. And it's already pretty impressive. So, all right, let's move on to the stat. What did you come up with for stat that you wanted to talk about for the 2025 season?
I got 2 numbers this week. My numbers are 8 and 9. And these are in reference to Colson Loveland, the rookie. So he is his 58 catches as a rookie. That's the 8th most all time for tight ends in franchise history, tied with Mike Ditka, one of his years. And it's also the most ever by a rookie tight end in franchise history. And then 9, his 713 receiving yards, that's tied for the 9th most ever by a tight end in team history. And he's doing this in year 1. He's doing this in a year where he had a really slow start. He wasn't even part of the offense, I think, for the first few weeks. There was an injury kind of mixed in there in the middle of the season. He only played 16 games. Look at what he did in the last 10 games or so. And you're like,
took over.
Wow. Yeah, he was the Bears' number 1. He's going to be, I think, the number 1 guy in Chicago for, I love his hands. I love his blocking. He is just such a mismatch. We've talked about it all year. And all those, oh my God, Colson Loveland's a bust. There are actually fans that had that take early on in the year. Like they were ready to write him off. You're like, dude, this guy literally just turned 21 a couple weeks before the draft. And you're really gonna write this guy off because he's not having a immediately quick start, coming off a shoulder surgery in the off season. Give us some time. And here we are. All those takes about, the Bears drafted the wrong tight end, those have gone out the window pretty quickly here because Tyler Warren's pretty good. Colson Loveland's pretty damn good too.
Both players can be good.
It can happen.
There are so many people that just want to
yeah.
They just want to take any piece of information and spin it and see. I told you Ryan Poles sucks, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, fill in the blank. I would say that yeah, we'll get to it in a minute, but absolutely, I think fourth and Loveland, right? The like this is the got to get a bucket guy.
Yes.
If you need a play, like the defenses are going to they're going to have to try to take him away, because Caleb's going to want to look like he's going to be the primary on a lot of have to have it plays, because like we've talked about, probably the best hands on the team, matchup nightmare. So if you've got to have it, he's going to be the primary, right? Like that's going to be the guy. So defenses are going to know that, they're going to learn that, they're going to know that, and they're going to game plan around that, which is going to open it up for somebody else,
Yep.
right? Because that's the whole like, well, I know that we like to go to this guy. So you're going to call a defense where you're going to try to take him away. So I'm going to throw it to Luther Burden here, right? Like, so there, but the more that the guys produce in those pressure situations, the better it is for the Bears overall, because now you've got that going, right? And then somebody else makes a play. It's like, oh, God, we can't forget about Luther Burden. Well, we're just going to hand it off to Kyle Monungai and we're going to shove it right at you. Oh, okay. We got to make sure and now it's like, well, we don't know. We don't know because they don't have tendencies, right? So that it's just great to see, because the more these guys produce, the better it is. So I've got a ton, Lester. I just want to go through some like high level basic stuff.
Okay.
25.9 points per game, ninth in the league. Last year, Bears were 27th in the league. 369.2 yards per game, just the offensive yards per game. That's sixth in the league. Last year, 32nd.
Yeah.
There's only 32 teams in the NFL, for those of you that need a reminder. 144.5 yards per game rushing. That's third in the league. Last year, they were 25th. 225 yards passing per game. That's 10th in the league. Last year, they were 31st. That is a monster turnaround. Slow start. First year in the offense. Everybody's coming together. Some bad weather games. Take all of that into account. Still top 10 in all of these categories. Like, I just use the basic yardage and point stuff because that's easy. You want to get into the advanced stuff, they're still top 10. You want to get into DVOA, you got all the opponent that the Bears have this weekend. The fans of that team love to talk about DVOA. Bears DVOA early, not good, right? But the weighted DVOA, which weights the last half of the year more towards, which is against better teams, Bears are pretty good. Yeah. Like, everything is trending in the right direction, and the final stats are all pretty good. So for a first year, for a baseline of what this offense is going to look like, it's truly, truly exciting.
I don't think anyone thought they'd be a top 10 offense year one. I think we were all hoping for top half of the league. I think
when I said it, people were like, you're just being a homer. Like, that's the reaction you get, is like, you're just being a homer. You believe in Ben Johnson too much. And I'm like, sure, but
we knew he'd be a big improvement. I'm not sure we thought he'd be, flirting with a top 5 offense. He's been as advertised, and he's not perfect, right? He's still learning. He still have some warts in his play calling and in a scheme where you're like, okay, and he has plays where he wants to have a do-over on. He knows that he made a mistake, and so these things are going to happen. And then as he and Caleb grow together, play caller quarterback, that relationship is so key. It's so critical. It's just going to keep getting better. It's just the sky is the limit to where this offense can end up being.
Yeah, it's awesome stuff. Again, I think you could pull a lot of numbers that are even more flattering. But I stuck with the super basic ones, and these should all be incredibly encouraging. Bottom 5 and basically everything last year, and it's top 5, top 10 and everything this year. It's incredible. It's an incredible turnaround, and that's what happens when you get the right guy in there, and he knows how to build this up. So it's really good stuff. I feel like a lot of our shows this year have pretty much turned Caleb's Corner into Caleb's Room, and we just talk about Caleb all the time in all the different categories, and I understand that, but he's so important, and his growth has just been so much fun to watch. But I'm curious I have a ton of numbers that I think are interesting. So let me just run through them, and then I'll let you react. So he finishes the year 330 of 568, which is 58.1% completion percentage. He has 3,942 yards. That is the new franchise record for most yards in a season. It is not 4,000. That is unfortunate for the many reasons, mostly because that graphic is going to still exist for another year. But I think we can all agree that it was an incredible year. 27 pass touchdowns, 7 interceptions. That puts his career regular season touchdown interception ratio at 3.62 through 2 seasons. The only player that is above him in that stat is Aaron Rodgers, who I think is done after this year. I think he's talked about retiring. Maybe his interception and touchdown interception ratio is 4.28. So there's a little bit of a gap there, but incredible start to Caleb's career. Would not surprise me if he's able to catch that. Working with Ben Johnson here. Lamar is in third place with 3.34. So, incredible to be in that range for what I think is an incredibly important and telling statistic. He's made all 17 starts this year. He's 34 in his career. He reduced the number of sacks from year 1 to year 2 from 68 to 24. So your job this year has been so much easier.
So much easier.
And he led the league in fourth quarter comebacks with 6, and I have so many more. He added 388 yards rushing with 3 touchdown runs. His intended average yards per pass, which again I wanted to look this up because that 58% completion percentage is not good. It's low. It's bad, but 8.5, which is 9th in the league. So he is pushing the ball down the field. He had 18 batted balls, which was 2nd in the league. He had 37 throwaways, which we talked about, which was also 2nd most in the league. And then he had all those drops, which depending on where you look, he has the most, or he has the 3rd most, or he has, whatever, it doesn't matter. There was a lot of drops. There was a lot of balls that should have been caught that weren't. And so I think when you take all of those numbers together, I'm not that worried about the completion percentage. And then the last thing that I'll leave you with is that for play action passing yards, here are the top 8 quarterbacks in order from 1 through 8 for play action passing yards. Tell me if you think this is a good group to be part of. Matthew Stafford, number 1, Goff, number 2, Sam Darnold, number 3, Caleb, number 4, Drake May, number 5, Dak, number 6, Josh Allen, number 7, Justin Herbert, number 8. That a pretty good group of quarterbacks to be around?
Play action is such a cheat code, right? I mean, we've always been a proponent of the more play action passes. I wrote an article about it in the offseason, how Ben Johnson is going to unlock that part of the Bears offense, because in Detroit, he was always one of the best. He calls play action, and a quarterback's efficiency increases almost every single time when you take all their play action numbers as opposed to not. Even when the team can't run, the Bears cannot run the ball last year very good at all. But still, when they ran play action passes, Caleb's efficiency shot up. It was the same way. The Raiders last year were the worst team in the NFL running the ball. But when they ran play action, I'm not even sure who the quarterback was last year. I forget now, but their efficiency went up. It's a cheat code. You want to change the eyesight of the defenders. You want to give them something else to think about. Even if you can't run the ball a lick, and the Bears can run, even if you can't run, play action and cheat code. I'm glad you brought play action up, because I love seeing it. His play action attempts went from 85 as a rookie to 160 this last season. The passing yards off play action, 626 last year. Again, one of the league's, middle of the pack, not too good. 1,189 yards this year off play action passes. It's a cheat code, and now you got a guy that, he gives you that bootleg element because he's so quick out of the pocket. So now these play action passes, they have it even more benefit because now he has that option to run when he gets outside the pocket.
I just think it's scratching the surface.
Scratching the surface.
It's just there's so much more that's going to come from this, and the where you're starting from, next year is going to be so much higher than where you started from this year. It's just it's very exciting. I think I know that was a ton of numbers. There's just so much to cover when you talk about a quarterback, and it was probably a little overwhelming that I just read them all off there. But I think the idea that some people have that you still see about Caleb Williams is just
Geez.
laughable if you actually go through everything and look at what he was able to accomplish this year. And if you've watched every game like we have, like many of you have also watched every game, and Lester and I have watched it every game multiple times. Like you start to see things that you're like, all right, you just don't see. I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
You know, like I've never seen a Bears quarterback do that. That's interesting. And there's 3 or 4 plays every game where you're like, oh wow, that's one of the best plays I've ever seen, and one of the best throws I've ever seen. Whatever, fill in the blank. And you add that up over a season, and you've got this like kind of amazing little highlight clip that is like, wow, this is great. And we're going to continue to build on all of the other stuff. Like this is very exciting. If you're not excited about Bears football now, I'm not sure when you ever will be. So that's I think that the sky's really the limit. I think he's there. Like I've seen people that really know this stuff. They're already putting him into tiers that are very favorable. And I saw a Yahoo clip with Matt Harmon and Scott Pinowski today, and it was about the Pats. I clicked on it. Scott Pinowski's a Patriots fan, and he was talking about his preseason prediction of Drake May and the Patriots doing really well. And Harmon was like, "I got to give you credit. I was fine with your prediction, but it was kind of a homer prediction for you, so I was kind of laughing at you." And he was like, "Well, I think the two things you got to have is you got to have the head coach and you got to have the quarterback." And I believe that the Patriots did. And isn't it great that like you look around and like you've got the Patriots, you got the Bears. The Bears have those two things. They have those two things check. And I was like, I'm not even clicking on a Bears, and here it is. It keeps coming up, right? Yeah. And I think you see these I think it's hard for Bears fans because that you're constantly just consuming Bears information, and so you get the negative, you get the positive, you get everything in between from people. But then if you start to go to these national people, and maybe you haven't listened to them because they don't talk about your team in the last few years because they haven't been very relevant, and you start to hear them talk about your team in a positive way because of what Ben Johnson's doing, because of what Caleb Williams is doing, and how they're working together and growing together. And it's like, hey guys, it's here. Like you can relax. It's gonna, this is a sustainable thing moving forward. Like there's still a lot of games to be won. There's still a lot of things that have to happen, but I think you can take a breath and say, hey, we got those 2 boxes checked.
I always find myself doing the DiCaprio meme, the pointing at the TV, like when they're talking about our team, because it doesn't happen. And then when it does happen in the past, it was always negative, but it's been mostly positive this year. And look, there's always going to be those guys that seem like they have an axe to grind for whatever reason. It's like, why are they harping on this one missed pass when he just made this phenomenal? It's like everyone has these plays. There's certain things that, no one is 100%. No one is perfect. It's going to happen from time to time. And, look, if he hit all those, I mean, he'd be a Hall of Famer right now. If that's what he was doing, if he was hitting all these layups, which, that's the
95% completion percentage.
You got to hit your layups. Well, yeah, you do. But everyone misses layups from time to time. I watch enough football, other stuff to see where it's not just Bears. It happens. And, he gets the extra criticism. Part of it is, who he was in college. Part of it is the fanfare around him coming out and everyone expected him to be the guy for a few years. And, then the generational label that's really rubbed some the wrong way for some reason. It's like, who cares? He's in here now. And like you said, he's got the coach. He's the quarterback. The offense ain't going anywhere. This is going to be this is Bears football for the next decade.
I do the DiCaprio meme when I see a national guy say something that we've been saying on Bear and Balance for 3, 4, 5 weeks. So,
well,
hey, I recognize that point. Yes. All right, quick break. Other side of it, and we are like way deep into this show. But other side of it, we're gonna finish the show off for the 2025 3 Bears. Stick with us. All right, Lester, hot bowl of porridge, cold bowl of porridge, just right for the 2025 regular season Chicago Bears. Where do you want to go with your hot bowl of porridge?
I mean, for me, if you look at the one thing, look, we all expected improvement, from Ben Johnson coming and taking over. We all expected the Bears to be better. They weren't going to be a 5-win team, right? But I look at the team as a whole. What's the one place that made a drastic improvement? And that's the pass protection. And that's not just the offensive line. That's not just Caleb Williams. And it's not just the scheme. It's everything working in unison, right? The running backs, the tight ends, the chipping, you know, the coach that knows the value of protecting the ball and protecting the quarterback. It's been such a turnaround. 4% is the sack percentage this year for the team. Last year it was pushing 12. I think it was 11.7, 11.8. So, I mean, they cut that way down. You already talked about a little bit in the Caleb's corner, but it's not just Caleb. It's not just, like I said, it's everything working in unison. It's the scheme working beautifully. It's the offensive line being coached properly. They're passing off stunts. Like it's not tricking them. Like you see them working in unison. You're seeing Jonah Jackson pass the guy off of Drew Dahlman. You're seeing Dahlman know which way to turn, right? Sometimes the defense tries to trick you and they threaten both A gaps, right? And this year, Dahlman is turning the right way because he knows the running back behind him has the other A gap. It's like, this wasn't happening the last few years, right? Like the Chris Morgan O-line coach experience was awful, and it wasn't just Morgan. It was the offense in general. Just, I didn't know what they were doing, but this year there's a plan. This year they know what they're doing. This year they're chipping when they have to. I mean, look, they've played some really good pass rushers. And while Max Crosby wrecked part of that game, he didn't get any sacks, right? But they were cognizant of him. They knew where he had to be. Myles Garrett, he got a little bit, but they knew where he was at all times. They have a plan in place. Caleb has outlets. He knows where his hot reads are. And even if the receiver's not always ready for it because it comes out so quick, it's there. You see the bones of the offense of where they're going to be eventually once they're all on the same page, because they're still missing a few, but the pass pro, man, has been so fun to watch this year.
Yeah, I mean, everything backs it up. The tape backs it up. The numbers back it up. I mean, and like you said, it's not just one thing. It's multiple things, but it's the offensive line and it's Caleb, right? I mean, and the tight ends and the running backs, help all that. But the pressure rate has gone way down.
Yeah.
And then the pressure to sack percentage has gone way down. Right. So both of those things going way down is how you go from 68 to 24. One of those things brings the number down a bit, but both of those things is what brings it down so much. So yeah, it really, in a year full of a lot of really fun numbers, that one really is it really does tell the tale in many ways. Yeah. That's in scheme, is the other aspect of that. But that's a pot of hot porridge though. Like that's not just the bowl. That's because you got all the offensive linemen, you got the backs helping out, you got the tight ends, you got Caleb. Like you're gonna be cooking porridge for a long time to be able to serve that much. I try to narrow it down to one person.
Okay.
Very difficult. So Spirit of the Award is the guy that exceeds your expectations, right? CJGJ he wasn't even on the roster to start the year, so that he could be a really good candidate. He's my honorable mention. My runner-up, I think, is DeAndre Swift. I've certainly, I like the player, but I certainly thought he had limits. And when Ben Johnson was hired, I thought, I don't know, man. Like he had DeAndre Swift here. He had DeAndre Swift in Detroit, and he kind of went away from him. Is he really going to like him here? Is he going to look for a way to try to replace him? Are they going to draft a running back high? Are they going to, and they certainly, reports were that they were interested in some of those backs that went pretty high if they would have drifted down into their pick range. Ashton Genty even, where they took Colson Loveland, if he would have been there, I think they would have taken Ashton Genty. Henderson, the guy from Travion Henderson, the guy from the Patriots, if he would have drifted into the Luther Burden range, would they have taken him? Probably. Would they have traded up for any of these guys? I don't know about that, but there was talk about that. Like they definitely wanted a running back, and a lot of it was I think they probably saw some limitations to DeAndre Swift. We talked about him being a really good RB2, like a supercharged RB2, but he's got to be in a committee. Like they kind of nailed this idea of him being in a committee. Well, he is still in a committee, but he's the lead back in the committee, and he did really well. 1,386 yards from scrimmage, 10 touchdowns, and he ran the ball incredibly hard.
Hard.
Like, just like he looked really good all year. I think he deserves a ton of shout. I at least give him a cup of hot porridge, of hot porridge. Okay. But I think I got to go with Nashawn Wright.
Okay.
And it's because I didn't even know he was a human person before the year started. And then he made the roster and he was getting reps and he's filling in. And all of a sudden he's starting in the first game of the year and he gets a pick six. Now he gets beat a lot.
Yeah.
Like this is like a guy that's up and down. He's a roller coaster. But the Bears aren't where they are if it's not for Nashawn Wright.
Yeah,
if it's not for his ability to take the ball away, he's a guy that certainly has believed in that. I mean, he stripped the ball from Jalen Hurts on the tush push, something I don't think has ever been done. He was a guy that made up for a lot of the coverage issues that he has by being aggressive and taking the ball away. And I think in the spirit of the award, he gave so much to this team, to this defense, where I was expecting just a black hole, like just nothing I wasn't familiar with his game, I guess, to put it that way. And so for the hot bowl of porridge, I want to give it to Wright.
No, that's perfect. I mean, the spirit of the war, a guy that kind of exceeded expectations. He kind of did what no one expected. And yeah, I mean, he like you said, he gets burned. I mean, that's the kind of nature of the position, right? Corners get burned, right? And that's kind of what happened. We kind of the Lions, they had to weigh a little bit out there with Wright and some of the other corners. But yeah, Wright, I mean, I'm not sure where he ended up this season, but I mean, he was among the league leaders in takeaways for most of the year. And should he have been in the Pro Bowl? But maybe. I mean, he definitely had the numbers, right? I mean, we kind of see these guys, throughout history that kind of get a lot of takeaways, but part of their game is not exactly where it should be. But regardless, I mean, Wright put himself in a situation as a free agent coming up. Someone's going to give him some money. They saw enough in him. They're like, yep, we can get him and he can work in our scheme. And I think he's a guy that is gonna, I think he'll be elsewhere. I just don't think he'll stick around because I think he's gonna get, paid too much what the Bears can handle. But yeah, I mean, good for him. Awesome career arc, where he's had here, where he's come from, overcame a lot. He had some personal loss he dealt with this season. So it's a great story with Nashawn Wright.
Yeah, I think the only thing that's really bums me out about the Pro Bowl, because I personally don't think the Pro Bowl stuff matters. I know that the players do. Yeah. It's just a bummer because this may be the best season he ever has. I mean, if you look at a lot of guys, sometimes things kind of stars align and things stack up for you in a good way. And if you miss that Pro Bowl honor, this might be the only time that he has that. And I'm not predicting his career. I don't know, but like just, it may be the top of his the best season he ever has, and to not have that next to his Pro Football Reference and for the rest of his life where he can call himself a Pro Bowler, that's a bummer. So that's my only bummer about the Pro Bowl that I don't think matters, but I do think it matters to the players, and so that kind of bums me out.
Yeah.
All right, let's spin it around. Let's do the cold bowl of porridge. Where do you want to go?
This hurts me to go with this guy.
Okay,
and I know it's going to hurt you too.
Oh,
but I got to go with punter Tory Taylor.
Hit me with it.
Look, fourth on draft pick. Obviously, once you're drafted, you're here. You are what you are. It is what it is. But look, the numbers came out today. The punt analytics, they came out dead middle, average punter, which is fine. I mean, it's okay. But look, honestly, coming from where he was, coming from the pedigree he had at Iowa, I thought he'd take a bigger jump in play this year. And it was kind of just plateaued. I mean, he really didn't do anything extra. I thought he may have had more wow punts last year as a rookie than he did this year. He was a player of the week last year for the Rams game. I'm not seeing the pinpoint accuracy we saw when he was a Hawkeye. I'm not seeing some of the tricks he does with the ball where, kind of just hits and dies and, that other punters around the league have been able to pull those off. I just expected more from a guy like him based on what he had in college, based on the flashes we saw of that last year. It just didn't happen as much this year, I thought. So I got to go there for two reasons. One, because like I said, I think he deserves it. But two, I wanted to give you the platform and talk a little bit about punting.
All right, here we go. All
There we
right,
go.
so here's how I would describe Tory Taylor's year: is that early in the year, the Bears' offense was not doing well, and so he had more opportunities to punt, and so more of the volume of his punting was earlier in the year.
Yeah.
Just from a base number standpoint, he had a couple bad punts in the first game, the first 2 weeks. He just had he had a couple bad punts early in the year, not just the first 2 weeks, but early in the year, September, even in October. The Bears were constantly changing out their gunners.
That
They
coverage was
did
bad.
not they did not have who they
Yeah.
wanted as gunners figured out. And so they were constantly trying to figure it out. And I mean, you watch a lot of football games, watch the punters. So often their gunner is just standing next to the returner as the returner makes a fair catch, right? And the number of times that the Bears gunners were just blocked out of the play. And so the returner is going to get a return. So early in the year with those bad games, he was like the second worst punter on Puntalytics, which is the same. It's the same methodology that I was using when I was tracking Taylor last year. And then through the year, he's had less volume, which is harder to bring up your stats when you start, poorly. He's had less volume, less numbers of opportunities to bring up the numbers, but he has improved relative to the rest of the league for his season-long stats. So he's brought up being like, he started off with a terrible game or two, and he was second to last in the league. And then he's improved all the way up to dead neutral average, right? And so I think that the bad start combined with the Bears coverage units being absolutely terrible, particularly early on, as they tried to figure out who can play this position. Who are we using here? I think that has really been shown. Now, the pin opportunities. Okay, so if you drop the ball inside the 5-yard line and it hits, and your gunner isn't there to make a play, and it rolls into the end zone, it's a bad punt because it goes to the 20. It's a touchback, right? So you've either got to make the spin play where you're bouncing the ball back, right? Or you've got to have a better gunner that gets down there and makes the play. Now, Blackwell made that one. What if Blackwell touched the line before he touched the ball and downed it at the 1? That's now a bad punt because it's below your expectations of where it should be, right? So a lot of these things are played on the margins. There's sample size issue. And I'm not like trying to make excuses for him. I'm absolutely sure that's what it sounds like right now. But as I see it, I think terrible start, not enough opportunities, which is a good thing, not enough opportunities for him to make up for it with good punts later on. And then I think the coverage units have been really bad. So am I worried that he finished as a dead average punter? I'm really not.
No.
But I do hope that he is able to show out what he is really good at here next year, maybe when the Bears have figured out what their coverage units look like.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think, like I said, I just expected more. I wanted to see more of the stuff that he did in Iowa, the stuff that got him a highlight video package, right, from the Hawkeyes, because he was just pinning guys deep and just booming these punts, and like I said, a lot of it is the coverage. And I think next year there may be some there definitely will be some roster rollover there at the coverage units, but there may be a coaching change too. Who knows? I mean, Ben may want to bring his own guy in in the off season, but yeah, it's it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, if that's your concern as a Bears fan, the punting is not as good as we hoped. It's just average. That's okay. I'll take that.
Yeah, I would love to get Cordero Patterson back. He was the best gunner that I have ever watched. And I know people, Steve Tasker. Like, yeah. I grew up, I remember Steve Tasker, but like in a Bears uniform, Cordero Patterson would like instantly beat the double team off the line. And he was so fast, and he would just be waiting by the returner. Like, I dare you, to feel this. The Bears need, that really helps your punter. That there's nothing better than a gunner that can force fair catches, and there was some in this game that should have been forced fair catches. They were the punts were fine, the distance were fine, the hang time was fine. Both gunners got blocked out of the play, and Raymond returns it for 9-10 yards. Well, now it's a bad punt because the net's not very good, right? So like it's a coverage thing as much as anything else. But yes, there's room to improve. There's some bounces that can go his way, but yes. And again, I know I sound offensive, but I just think people throw the 4th round draft pick in a weak draft class that everybody forgets on him and put, I think, expectations on him that it's like, yeah, I agree, but also there's other things that go into this. So, okay. For me, I listed out a bunch of injured guys that I just wanted to say, like, Braxton Jones didn't hold the job down at left tackle. Jalen Johnson was not available for most of the year. And when he's come back, he's looked, a shell of himself. Kyler Gordon's been a big disappointment and has not been able to stay on the field. The linebackers, Edwards and Edmonds, I think, have both looked really good at times, but then they've been injured. They've come back. They haven't looked themselves. That's been disappointing. Turner, the rookie, not being able to, he started to look okay, and then he got hurt. He was off the field. I'm not giving a cold bullet pour to an injured guy.
Okay.
Because I don't think that's fair, right? I just want to mention, I think some people are going to say, this guy disappointed me. Kyler Gordon disappointed. He signs an extension and then he doesn't play. I get it, but injuries are what they are. You hope next year, Brisker was a guy that got injured a lot and he's played every game this year. Right. So it's just it's a thing that happens to these guys. It's a very violent, dangerous sport. So I try to pick a guy that I expected more out of. Gervon Dexter.
Okay.
I thought Dexter was going to take a step.
Yeah.
And I think that he did not. I think that you could argue that he maybe even took a half step back. I just don't think that he's the force that we both expected him to be at this. I think we expected him to take the next step. Like, hey, he's the guy on the defensive line. That's where his trajectory is going. And I just don't think any offense is really scared of Gervon Dexter. I think that he's not someone that they account for. He's just a guy. Like he's not someone who is in line for a monster extension or anything like that. He's a nice player, but he's not an impact player.
That's a good call. I mean, if you look at his numbers are up. I mean, he had a career high 6 sacks this year. I think his TFLs may have been a little bigger. But yeah, the productivity on the field and you look at what he did, I don't think it was quite as impressive as we thought. Grady Jarrett came in, didn't really perform up to Grady Jarrett, Pro Bowl expectations. So maybe they kind of took a little away from what Dexter was asked to do. But yeah, I think Dexter overall, you look at what he was asked to do, maybe not be the best fit for what Dennis Allen's defense wants to do. I've heard some chatter, maybe move him out to defensive end. He seems to be like Dennis Allen likes those big body defensive ends. Yeah, I mean, he's still a young player, right? He still can grow into his own. And I mean, we've seen guys that kind of come out of nowhere. I mean, look, Dominic Robinson has been basically a nothing his entire career. This year, he's been serviceable. I'm not saying that's the same comparison. I'm saying that sometimes some guys can take a jump. And Robinson, as much as we like to rag on him and what he didn't do, he was an NFL player this year. He was fine. He was out there doing what he had to do. Dexter can certainly take that jump next year, and I think he's going to have to work on some stuff with his technique. I still think he's a little sloppy at times, but that's a good call. Yeah, I was expecting more from. I was curious where you're going to go in this one since I stole the Tory Taylor thunder there off you.
I would never give Tory Taylor a cold bull. Absolutely not. I'm too much of a homer. Yeah. I get that people might not get why I did that with Dexter there, but I expected him to take a step, and even if the numbers are a little better, I'm not seeing it on the screen. He's not jumping off the screen for me. Making a few plays here and there is great, but I'm not seeing him be a force, and I think that's what I expected him to be at this point. So it's also just like maybe that's just my problem. But I'm not seeing him as like right now. If his contract was up, I wouldn't expect the Bears to prioritize bringing him back. That's where I'm at.
His size, his speed, his athleticism, his strength. I mean, he is. If you look at, if you would say I want to design a defensive tackle, he's a guy. I mean, he's a physical specimen. But like I said, he gets a little sloppy at times in some of his technique, gets a little high at times. And I think that's just something he has to work on. And look, if you got the physical traits, you got that ability going for you, and it's just a technique thing, those guys that usually can figure things out. If a guy had nothing to work with, I mean, he's a nice ball of clay right now, and he's, like I said, he's still young, and he's still coming to his own as a player. So I mean, he's not going anywhere. I mean, he's still under contract, so he'll be in Chicago next year. You just hope that he kind of take a step and give us some more flash plays, because
Yep.
that this defense needs it.
More consistency and more
Yeah.
flash plays. I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
both that. All right, let's finish this out in this very long show with our just right bullet porridge. Where do you want to go?
I tried thinking of somewhere different to go, and I kept coming back to Caleb. I just kept coming back to Caleb because he is performing this year like I anticipated, right? He is exactly where I thought he'd be in his career. I thought him and Ben Johnson would be a perfect match. I thought the offense, again, was going to be built around Caleb. You heard a lot of people in the offseason, oh, he's a bad fit for Ben Johnson. Well, then you're clearly not paying attention what's happening here, because he's going to mold it and morph his offense. It's not going to be a Jared Goff offense, it's the Caleb Williams offense. And we've seen that this year. So Caleb and Ben, to an extent, these two are right where we expect them to be. They had this offense on this beautiful trajectory to being a top offense for a decade. And there was nowhere else I could have went.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote down a couple things. Again, I've tried to be pretty precise in the first two, but this one I felt like I wanted to make sure we talked about a couple guys as a cleanup. One was Austin Booker. I think he, despite being injured and at the beginning of the year, I think he's come along, and he is showing what we were hoping he would be when the Bears basically drafted him a year early, and have brought him along. I think he's shown to be a guy that you're excited about, and so I think that's great. For sure for me, it's Ben Johnson. I listen. I've been a Bears fan my whole life. I've followed the football more than anything else. This is like my one hobby, right? I mean, I do other things, but like this is the thing I spend the most time on. And I have called, like, other than Caleb, which was obvious. I think I've called 2 draft picks in my life. One was Greg Olson and one was Roma Dunze, right? Like I don't get it right most of the time of what the Bears are going to do. Either that guy gets drafted early, or that they don't draft the guy that I like. And I have never correctly picked the coach until this time. And I picked it early, a year and a half early. And so this is my guy. This is the guy that like calls offense the way that I would imagine that I would love to have the ability to call it, because it's the type of football that I like to watch. And he's a badass. He's come in personality wise. He's such a fit with the city. Like, just everything is so aligned that I think that they finally got their guy. And so to me, this was the obvious, just right. There's like Caleb, Ben Johnson. That's the perfect pairing. So I think that's the answer, but I want to finish with the rookie class.
Nice.
Because every year we cover each pick individually. We talk to Jacob Infante, we talk to EJ in the past, whatever it is, right? We talk about these guys and we talk about this class. We were really excited about this. Needed to be a foundational rookie class because they had, the 3 second-round picks. It felt like a really important draft for Ben Johnson, this new partnership between Ryan Poles, and they have brought these guys along in such a smart way. Ozzie Trapillo wasn't ready, right? But he eventually took over, and he has looked pretty decent, right? Like a guy that you feel like you can build around. You've got your offensive line in the future. Colson Loveland coming off shoulder surgery, kind of slow in camp, come along, not a factor in the offense. By the end of the year, having just a monster game, looking like he's going to be a top tight end, maybe the top tight end in the league as soon as next year, right? Phenomenal. That's what you expect with the number 10 pick, right? Luther Burden, best player available. That's what everybody said. Hey, he's best play BPA. That's what everybody wants.
Yeah. And
it never happens. This is BPA. They didn't need Luther Burden. Are you kidding me? You got DJ Moore, you got Roman Dunze. You don't need Luther Burden. They took him. Guy who was talked about as a top 10 draft pick the year before. They brought him along slow. They brought him along as he earned the reps. And now everybody's like, well, Luther Burden's the number 1 wide receiver on this team as soon as next year, right? And so this rookie, you might say that's a hot bowl of porridge, but like I think that the way that they drafted, developed, and deployed this rookie class is exactly what I would expect from a smart coaching staff. And all of these guys have responded because of how that was laid out. And I'm just so impressed with everything about it. You want to give the credit to Ben Johnson. You want to give, I don't care who you want to give the credit to, but everybody has been in lockstep with deploying these guys and putting them in the best position to succeed. But to me, it's another one of the takeaway stories of this season.
Yeah, you didn't mention Kyle Monangai,
And
running
Kyle
back.
Monangai, of course.
You didn't mention Luke Newman, who again, talk about coming along slowly. I mean, the Bears kept him around, and at one point he was your number one guard off the bench. And I think he's a guy that he may never be a surefire starter, but if he could be this team's version of Ryan Bates, a guy that kind of comes in and kind of play every spot pretty good, because Ryan Bates is a free agent, right? He's gone after this year. So if Luke Newman is your guy that kind of play a little bit of center, play a little bit of guard in a pinch, that's what you need. You need these guys. I mean, not every draft pick is going to come in. This is where fans look at drafts and they get twisted, because they expect guys to come in and be super duper studs from day one. If Luke Newman is a part of your roster for the next 4 years and he doesn't do nothing but play 4 or 5 games,
it's a win.
That's a win, because he's a part of your team. He's a part of your 53. He deserves a roster spot. When he's called upon, he can perform. That's a win, right? Ruben Hippolyte, right now he's a miss, but if he's a core special teamer for the next few years going forward, that's fine. I mean, that's okay. Not every draft pick is going to be a starter from day one. They're not all going to start for 4 straight years. Most of your day 3 guys are going to be special teamers. They barely will see defense or offense. That's just kind of the nature of it is, you hope to get some home runs. Turner, he got injured, but he was starting to come around. They had him at defensive tackle. They said they were not going to play him, at the edge, even though in college he played a little bit of both. Nope. We wanted to learn DT as a rookie. And then as the year went on, they realized, well, he can play defensive end. So as soon as he starts playing a little defensive end, he gets injured. So it's unfortunate. The thing with Trapilla, I think to me, that's the biggest one of all, because he looked unplayable early in the year. Like in preseason, he got some reps. You're like, yeah, I mean, he was hopefully to be the guy. They wanted him to win a job over Braxton Jones in the preseason.
Yeah,
it just didn't happen. Jones had it. He never came back for his injury. Who knows where he is now? I mean, Braxton Jones is on IR. Maybe the injury is so bad he'll never play again. Who knows? I mean, we've heard nothing about it. So, but Trapilla looked unplayable. They were playing, Eggs Beneday over him, at one point, and then all of a sudden Trilla gets a chance. He goes in, like, okay, not bad. He looked like he can play out there. He played right tackle and left tackle. So I think now going forward, I think as a franchise, you're comfortable that he's going to be left tackle next year. Now, if the draft falls and the guy kind of lands, again, BPA, if the stud left tackle falls and he's sitting there, maybe you do it and you figure it out when you get the talent in the building. But right now, I think the Bears have to be very comfortable that they have their O-line 5 for the next few years.
I think you had a little nugget about rookie touchdowns too.
Oh yeah, Patrick Finley. Sometimes he said the Bears had 15 rookie touchdowns this year, which is the most in modern Chicago Bears history. I'm assuming that means prior to Super Bowl eras. I'm guessing what that means, but yeah. So you had Loveland with 6, Monangai with 5, Jade Walker, undrafted free agent, had a couple, and Burton had a couple. So yeah, 15 from the rookie class, including
not bad.
The like I said, UDFA, Jade Walker, who looks like a player too, right? I mean, that's the guy that looks like he may be your wide receiver 4, maybe even 3 at some point in his future.
Yeah, and you hope that you have these position coaches that can bring along, players and work with them and develop them and plug them in and use them. And yeah, I mean, I really like this coaching staff. Eventually they'll lose some coaches to promotions. That is what it is when you have success. But right now, like if you're seeing that those trends of like, well, this player is a guy I never heard of and they kept him around and they developed, and now he's playing real snaps. Like you do that, and that takes those undrafted free agents that never do anything in previous regimes, and they're actually playing meaningful snaps. That's how you have to construct teams, because eventually some of these guys' contracts are going to be due, and you fit everybody in, you have to offset that with cheaper contracts. So if guys can identify, draft, or sign undrafted free agents, and then develop those guys, and then get them ready to deploy them, then that's what I mean about the rookie class. Like, that everything that's happened with that rookie class should make you feel really good about the alignment between Ben Johnson and the front office. The alignment. If you watched the draft, you saw these position coaches so happy when they drafted a guy at their position group, right? Like they drafted Luther Burden, and Antoine Randall like freaked out, right? Like he was just like, he was as happy as he's ever been, right? And like there's just you see these guys, if the front office and the coaching staff are aligned, and the coaching staff, it's like, yeah, this is the guy I want because X, Y, and Z, and they get their hands on him, and then they prove that was correct. That's really exciting, because you've got a good staff, and then they're going to be able to develop that talent. So it's exciting, man. Like, I just, as a button, as a bow on the 2025 season, I think there are so many positive things to look at. And I think Ben Johnson is the type of guy that says, I'm not happy with 11-6 and the number 2 seed. I want to go 15-2 and be the 1 seed and make sure that I'm at home through the playoffs and win championships. So it's not like he's going to go into next year and be like, yeah, we're good, whatever, man. Let's just, like, he's going to come in and be like, okay, let's attack this offseason just like we did last offseason. Here are our weaknesses. What do we, how do we attack them? How do we get better? And so I think that I'll just put it, I'm not going to tell you what to think. What I think is, the Bears are back, baby. Like, this is that they've got the two boxes checked. And if you're not willing to get with me on that, you never will. But this is it right here. It's the Bears are back, and you and I are going to be talking about a lot of wins over the next few years.
These aren't the same old Bears.
That's it. That's what we got.
Let's get the hell out of here. Now let's get the hell out of here. It's late. We went long tonight, man. It's a fun season to recap, though. And it just, the new season starts on Saturday night.
Let's hope everybody has an Amazon Prime account, or you can, tip your wait staff and enjoy that. Yeah, we went 80 some minutes here, so we're gonna just clock out here. Appreciate everybody's time this season. We'll be back next week at the same time. And yes, Chris, I do love to talk punters, so it's good stuff. Thanks everybody for joining us. We really appreciate it. We're really looking forward to the off season, and we'll see you next week. Bear down.